Hi, thank you, and welcome to today's episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat. I'm Karen Scott Green,
And I'm Kat Hardrick.
and we are joined today with Kelsha Weaver. Miss Weaver is a retired Army major. She is a novice farmer and a doctoral candidate. Along with her husband, she runs a small farm in South Georgia, which she purchased in 2013 due to her passion for Black
Say
agrarianism.
that fast 10 times. Say that fast 10
It
times.
stems from her journey and experiences with systemic challenges in agriculture. Her doctoral research focuses on the challenges of Black women in land procurement, with inspiration drawn from her path and the transformative policies of Section 22007 of the Inflation Reduction Act. Thank you for joining us, Kelsha.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
So that was a mouthful. Before we dive into all of that, first explain what was Section 2207 of the Inflation Reduction Act and how that ties in with your doctoral research.
Well, Section 22007 of the Inflation Reduction Act was administered by the Biden-Harris administration. It was designed for farmers, ranchers, and foresters to give them debt relief or assistance due to discrimination, whether it be for race, gender, sex, uh, anything. So it was kind of saying, oh, we kind of messed up, but here's some debt relief and here's some financial assistance to kind of ameliorate the wrongdoings of the systemic discrimination in the USDA.
Okay. And so this is in direct response to the prior litigation that Black farmers had against the USDA for discrimination for for decades. Is that right?
It is one of the measures they're using for that. Yes, correct.
Okay. And for those who may not be familiar with it, there was a class action lawsuit that Black farmers in this country had against the USDA for systemic racism, where they had been denied loans, had been denied funding for their farms, and their white counterparts in the same communities were given loans, and they were also given funding to be able to help on their farm. Hey, what's up? What's up?
Yeah. Are we saying that there was discrimination against Black people?
Oh,
Except,
well,
Our government has acknowledged there was discrimination.
they
oh,
certainly
man.
have on several occasions. And if I may add, that what Miss Karen was talking about is it all started with Timothy Pickford, right, in 1976, that actually did the Pickford versus Glickman case, which was a class action lawsuit that said that the government was denying loans to Black farmers between, I believe it was 1983 to 1997. And
Wow.
this led to a whole bunch of class action lawsuits after that. And this is one of the federal policy, well, laws and policies they put in place to try to, again, make things right.
To try to
So
ameliorate
it's,
Yes, exactly.
racism.
so that's good. How many people know about how many people know about these resources so that they can capitalize on that?
Well, that's one of the challenges that we bring up, and that's why I'm doing this research, is to get the, you know, my general problem to be addressed is that, literature is saying, and everybody is saying, that the women, Black women, veterans, and specifically, we have poor access to land and capital. What I'm advocating using Section 22007 of the Inflation Reduction Act is saying that that the reason why we're so underrepresented in agriculture is because of we experience historical patterns of racial and gender discrimination in procuring farmland that cause the inequities in resources such as land and capital.
Mm-hmm.
Because truth be told, most of us are either one or two generations away. Most Black Americans are one or two generations away from a rural lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm 50, so my parents both grew up on family land that had been farmed. My mom's family had land in Central Florida. My dad's family still has land in North Florida. So we're one or two generations removed from agrarian type of society. And then
Mhm.
so a lot of that farmland our families have moved away from. They've sold, or in my family's case, on one side, a lot of the land was taken by eminent domain by the state of Florida. So a lot of wealth has been lost generationally because of policies like folks not being able to get loans, not being able to borrow against their farms to be able to expand, and they left, like my father's generation, my mother's generation left out of the rural South because there were no opportunities really for them. So they gave up on farming.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So,
Well, go ahead, Kat. I don't want to cut you off.
no, so I just wanted to ask that with your studies, why is this important to you to do this particular study and bring what you're doing to light for Black farmers and veterans?
First of all, it's food security. Yeah.
Mm.
Again, you see my hat. Farmers made America great. We have to feed America or we can't survive. That's bottom line up front. And and the second thing is it being a Black woman and being a veteran. Um, if you look at the statistics, women are now becoming the majority as far as the military service. So
Mm.
Wow.
we're going, yeah, if you look at statistics, we're dominating in that. A lot of the males are, phasing out because of age for one, and a lot of males cannot get into the military because of maybe prior past history. So females are now becoming the dominant role within the military service. So
Mm.
these are going to be veterans, correct? So now you're going to have a new demographic coming into when you speak in Black women, that if you look at statistics again, that move to these southern states. And most of them retire young. They do their 20 years and then they retire and they're looking for another career.
Yes.
So why not agriculture? Agriculture is, we found out, is therapeutic. We found out so many things that veterans make better, better farmers than, the lay people because of our self discipline and what we were taught in the military. So now, since you have a demographics switch, now
Hmm.
you have to start catering to that specific demographic. So how do we do that? And again, we have to understand some of the challenges associated with Black women veterans going into agriculture.
And what are some of those challenges?
Mhm.
Well, the first one we talked about again was the systemic discrimination, and when we talk about that, for me going into the research, I'll use my case as an example. When I moved to Southern Georgia and began the farming career, I was looking around and I noticed what resources are there available for me to learn about farming, to learn about how to get capital, to get some training, because I knew nothing. I knew nothing about farming. So this kind of sparked my curiosity. So then when I started looking at the research and understanding a little bit about what I needed to do, I said, well, why not make this about me? Because I'm going to be that next, and people under me, that next generation, they have to, federal lawmakers and local lawmakers have to start catering to. So
Mhm.
I, I started reading literature, and it said that, again, what we talked about, that we are underrepresented because of poor access to land and capital. But then I was like, but why? I'm that little kid, that goes, why, mom? And from
Mhm.
what goes all the way back to when the Europeans came over and they started taking the land, right? They started taking the land from the indigenous people, and and then you have Jim Crow, then you have, the Homestead Act. So now we're talking about Black land ownership, which you hear a lot about. Don't sell your land loss, and all that other stuff. It goes way back to that era of of Blacks being racially, discriminated upon, that we couldn't own land. So, and then now being a woman, that even though we had contribute significantly to the field of agriculture, it was a male-dominated profession, just like, going into the military. So again, one of those is, how do we break that gender? How do we break those races? But again, that is going to be something that is hard because of those long and deep roots that's embedded within the system that, like I said, cause these inequities that makes it difficult for us. It makes the resources, what I mentioned earlier, going into trying to find what I'm going to find in those rural areas. Nothing, because everything is kind of made for other people. So sorry, I got a little bit off a
No,
topic, but
no,
again,
no.
you gotta go back to the past and understand why. You can't just say we have poor access to land, but why was that? Because the federal and federal government and local governments made it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually legislated. So yeah, that
Yes.
part. Some people want to
Yeah.
know, like, well, why do you keep saying that there's discrimination? Why? Because it was legislated that in some areas you couldn't own land, you couldn't buy. So this
But
is the reason why. So, but let me ask you this: when you went to purchase your property, you started looking at property in South Georgia to purchase for farming. What barriers did you personally experience, or did you experience any barriers when you were looking for your land?
Okay, first, so for me, it was a little bit different. My husband and I, we were kind of frugal. So we didn't look to the, yeah, what I said. So we systematically started saving up, because when I met my husband, we had already set our goals. He said he always wanted to own a farm. That's what he wanted to do. And so we started putting money off aside so we wouldn't have to ask anyone to do so because of his experience, for one. So the challenges that when we went to buy the land, or we didn't really have any, because we knew the value of, hard work and saving money based off my husband's experience growing into Georgia, and not saying that he wanted to use any assistance because, he saw Black farmers, them, taking farmland away from them. So we saved our money and we were able to purchase our farmland that way. Now, what I saw is coming down to the South, it was a whole different world, sitting with buying a farm, which was a family farm, and they were selling the last little bit of 100 acres of it, sitting with a group of people, I'll call them white people, asking us like, why do y'all want this land? Or what do you intend to do with the land? I was like, babe, you sure you want to move here? Because I really never experienced that kind of stuff because I come from a mixed background.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it finally hit to me like, hey, we moving to the South now. Things are different here. So then that kind of opened my eyes to say, hey, we're going to have some challenges. But after talking with a lot of people, it's because, in the South is different than purchasing land in the North. So you deal with a whole lot of, again, we go back to Jim Crow, which is predominant in the South, about, race and people owning land, and they're not just going to give you that land like that. And because we had the funds to do it, we were able to buy that land from a white family-owned farm and do it. But I think they're just doing it for people that didn't save money and trying to purchase
Mhm.
farm. I am not hearing that same story. They can't get the money. They can't get the resources to purchase their own farmland. That way they have to go into what they call like sharecropping or co-ops.
Mhm.
Uh, to get a little piece of land with other people, but not own their own land outright.
And so, what are you and your husband farming right now?
Right now, we're letting the land kind of rest. We have pine trees on the farm, and the reason why we're letting the land rest is because we plan on going organic, and we were doing peanut, soybean, and cotton. And because of the chemicals used in planting those things, we have to go through a whole process where the soil has to settle and set and has to be tested again to make sure we can actually get our land and our produce certified organic. But yeah, we plan on doing a little bit produce, a little bit goats here and there, and
Hmm.
Yeah, just grow our own food so we can eat.
Okay.
For right
You
now, for right now.
when you talked about like letting the land kind of heal itself and to cure the land, it made me think about there's a passage in the Bible that talks about you plant for 7 years, and then for 7 years you let the ground you let the ground be. And so
Mhm.
and I heard that explained like that's the healing of the land. Like you toiling it, you're working it for 7 years, and then you let it be and kind of heal itself so that it's new ground as you're tilling new ground. So even in biblical times, they knew about the importance of you have this season where you're growing and then you don't grow, but you store up what you've grown for that period of time so that it covers you during that season of where you're supposed to be letting the land heal. And it's also the same passage that talks about every 7 years you're supposed to cancel out debt too. But anyway.
Well, again, I tell you, I said, when we go back, I'm the kind that asks questions. We go back to the Egyptians, we go back to our roots, right? Why do you think we became farmers and they brought us over to farm? Because we know when Europeans were studying, philosophy and stuff, we were studying astrology and understanding how and when and what times we can grow food, medicines, all that other stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
So they weren't doing that. And when I refer to them, I refer to them as the Europeans. We were doing that. That is why they made us slaves and brought us over to the States, because we knew what we were doing. Even the indigenous people, we were all studying these things that we already knew. They
Yep.
didn't know that.
That's
So
the reason
again,
why they went to the west coast of Africa and got folks from Ghana and Senegal and these rice growing communities because they already knew how to grow rice and grow these crops and things like indigo and to make dyes. Like we had been doing these
for
things for
years, since
That
the beginning
for
of time,
centuries. And that's what we were talking about before, Kelsey, how we weren't taken for labor. We were taken for our
knowledge.
wisdom, our
Knowledge
knowledge,
is
our
power.
information. And we were able to do those things that they, one, didn't know how to do. And of course, if you don't know how to do it and you can force a population of people who can, why try to do it yourself? Instead of creating unity and saying, let me partner with you, it was more of a, oh, let me oppress you. So you're absolutely right. No one was taken just to be, I need these millions of enslaved people. They took us because of we we took care of the soil, we took care of the earth, and it was sacred to us. That's what I'm trying to say. It was very sacred to us. We
yes.
respected the soil, we respected water, we respected the elements that God blessed us with. I I want to lead, this leads into my question. Because of systemic oppression, and I believe that the DNA of trauma follows through us generationally. Not only do
Mm,
I believe it, I know that there's science to prove it. There's a huge disconnect or mass exit for people to say, I don't want to deal with farming because I'm not picking cotton and I'm not going back to that. It's just a mindset of that's not, it connects them back to our ancestors in a negative way.
Mhm.
How can we get people to jump over that Jim Crow
mm.
saga and reach back to the diaspora of our true ancestors? Not that the other ones aren't, but the beginning where we were, our power was in that. How do we get that gap? Because I think that's a gap. Would you say, Kelsha?
It is. I mean, again, like I said, I take it far back. It starts off from us being that tribe and community type aspect, which I think that a lot for minorities, we're losing that because we're getting more into capitalism and stuff that the Europeans their how do you say ideologies they brought into it.
Uh-huh.
When
Yeah.
we were taking care of the land and being those guardians of that, we had a community type ideology, right? That we gave like when we had harvests, sort of like when we give tithes, when we have a harvest, we give to
Give them a
everybody.
chance.
Everybody
Yes.
That's right.
eat. Europeans is who has the most power. They invented capitalism. We didn't, but we saw that and we got embedded into that to say that the more that we get, the rich and power, those materialistic things, it is our worth. So that question you asked me, how do we bring it back and instill it? We have to start with the community aspect. We have to start within ourselves. Bring kids to learn the importance of food. Show them, hey, this food is killing us, and
Yes.
show them how. Again, Karen, you said you were, vegetarian, vegan, and like I don't eat a lot of certain things because I understand how it affects my health. But and again, kids, we have to teach them while they're young. We have to say community. We have to put worth where worth it really is, and it's ourselves. It's our spiritual. It's our, what we take in, not just what we see, but what we eat, what we hear. All our five senses using that. And once they get a pride,
Mm-hmm.
back in the pride of understanding the land and how we impact it, then again, that's just a start. It's going to have to come from people not putting value on the Louis Vuitton or Gucci or stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, if we can't eat, we can't live, and none of those things
Yes.
is going to
Yes.
be irrelevant. So we got to start shifting our priorities as far as what is valued
And
in the
and
Black communities, and it's
and
not Air Jordans.
and as you say that, I'm thinking about, I've heard Black people say that, like, saving this earth is not our job because we're not the ones who ruined it. However, we may not have been the ones. You've never heard that, Cat?
Girl, 'cause that don't make sense at all to me. You still live here. Where you gonna
So
go? Jump off
I'm,
somebody's
I'm just telling
airplane?
you I'm just telling you what I've heard. And so, but somebody has to be the guardian of Mother Earth. And so Black and brown indigenous communities have always thought of the earth, number one, being female, giving life, being life giving, and have
The
always, yes, and have taken that perspective. So we have to take care of this planet, and so that means that, like, Black and brown folks, we need to get into environmentalism, right? Because we've been responsible and we have to be responsible. We may not have been the ones that own factories that are polluting, but we live here. And so we need to do things like be the guardians of the soil, being the guardians of those things that grow. That's my personal perspective. But I do want to, I wanted to correct myself. So it's Leviticus 25 that says, sow your fields, prune your vineyards, and take in your harvest for 7 years. But the seventh year, the land will take a Sabbath of complete and total rest. So even in laying down Levitical law, so I said 7 years before, but it's 6 years that you till, and then
And
1 year you let that earth rest. And so that follows up with Kelsha saying, like, she has this property, this land, but she has to let the soil heal before she can start growing. Because if you just go in there and you start planting new stuff, what's gonna happen?
it's not going to live. And
not gonna live.
it's not. When you were talking about Mother Earth, and this, I'm speaking from my own opinion.
Mhm.
So everybody that's watching and will be listening, this is just Kat's opinion. Look, as that commercial says, the opinions of the persons are not of the.
We are not responsible.
Right. But it struck me when you ladies were just saying about Mother Earth. The planet has always been referred to as a woman of life.
Mhm.
And in our culture in the diaspora, we honored women. Now, don't get me wrong, there was bad people. There's bad people everywhere.
Yeah.
But women
But there
were
was
honored.
some reference. There was some reverence to women
Mhm.
as
Right.
being the life force, that
Yeah.
life came through.
But isn't it something how the shift of a demographic who, even in their own laws, did not honor women? Why
Mm,
are we shocked that they don't honor
mm,
Mother
the
Earth?
earth. And even scoff
You
at the
understand?
idea that the earth is not well. They scoff at like global warming
Mhm.
and, and the policies that are creating global warming and the actions and the things, and make fun of environmentalists who are talking
Well,
about, like, lowering emissions and greenhouse gas.
or the fact that the Arctic is melting. Like, dude,
Yeah,
you have proof that something is wrong, that other parts of the country is on fire. Places that have
yeah,
never seen snow see snow.
yeah.
Places that are never seen summers are seeing summers. Like, dude, it's in your face.
And species are dying out.
And species are dying out, and new ones.
Are
20.
coming about. Um, the, I'm always tell back to why I picked Section 22007
Mhm.
of the Inflation Reduction Act. It's because if you look at it, it was based off of the National Resource Conservation Service, right?
Mm.
So that is that big overarching law from the government trying to implement more sustainable and sustainable and eco-friendly type practices. And if you look at research, women are they'll exercise more sustainable practices versus a male will. And I say that because women understand what because we're made to make children. We understand what our kids need for them to grow healthy. So we'll
Nurturing.
take a more sustainable approach to agriculture and what we do. So not only grow our crops, but that the soil is healthy because it starts off from the soil before you put that seed in to grow bountiful crops. So
Yeah.
just my little segue to that. So everything I say and do has everything to do with why this section 22007 is so critical, to because it'll open doors. If we can better understand it and better understand those challenges within
Mhm.
within the Black women veteran community that's into agriculture, we'll better understand how to set our programs and policies to get them into the agricultural fields, and then so you can see the big changes upon the ecosystem and sustainability.
Absolutely. One thing I want to say is how you found us is from one of our episodes where we had a Black veteran farmer and a history maker who was from Detroit, my hometown. Woo, Donna Lewis.
Yes.
Hey, Donna. Shout out to Donna. And she was just totally amazing. And you saw that episode. So thank you for
Ah,
I
watching
did.
Conversations with Karen and Kat. And thank you to all our listeners, because this is a mission. This is a what's the word for when we doing God's work?
it's our mission.
It's our
Calling,
mission. Did I already? Okay.
calling,
Ministry.
It's our ministry.
ministry. Okay,
It's
you
our
going real
ministry.
church.
Wrong M. Look, girl, I know it's our ministry. So it's just a full circle. You saw the podcast, reached out, and here it is. We got so much in common. Please tell our viewers what you're doing and what you need from our viewers to help move your studies along with the Reduction Act of 2022.
So as a black woman veteran farmer, I'm researching the challenges Black women veterans face when trying to procure farmland for agricultural businesses. And like I said before, these challenges stem from deep-rooted racial and gender discrimination, which results in the inequities in access to land and capital. So what I am needing from the community is I need to find 20, I'm sorry, my words get all jumbled up. I need to find 20 highly motivated Black women veterans that participated or submitted an application for Section 22007 of the Inflation Reduction Act, or what is called as the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program, or DFAC, that live in the South, to conduct a 30 to 60-minute simple interview, just talking about their experiences with, filling out the application and their challenges within the, their experience about purchasing farmland.
Okay. And how can they get in contact with you?
They can get in contact with me by I have a working website, which is Future Dr. Kelsha, one word, futuredrkelsha.com, or the katykane397@gmail.com, or Kelsha Weaver at email.phoenix.edu.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So,
go ahead, Karen.
no, just for those who want to reach out to be part of this study, that is Kelsha Weaver. She's a doctoral candidate, University of Phoenix, and that's Kelsha Weaver, WEAVER, at email.phoenix.edu. And the website again was futuredrkelsha.com, Future Dr. Kelsha, doctor is DR, Kelsha.com. So for those of you who are in Alabama, Arkansas, DC, Florida,
South of the
Georgia,
Mason-Dixon line.
yeah, south of the Mason-Dixon, you can participate in this study. And it is so important that that folks who are in the agricultural community that are Black participate in this study, because she needs to hear from you. Black farmers, your voice is very much needed. Black women veterans, right? That you want to participate.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Black women veterans. I know you're out there. I spoke to a lot of you out there. It's just a lot of people. What Kat brought up, how did they find about these resources? We're finding out that a lot of them never even heard of these programs, but they were giving money from the government to organizations were giving money from the government to put this information out. And it's amazing how a lot of people just did not hear about it, which is a challenge within itself. I didn't answer a lot of good questions that Kat asked earlier, but a lot of these things come from this lack of the communication, lack of trust, of all these things compound on all the challenges that we face, especially being a rural area. We just don't get that information. And if we don't get it, if we don't get that knowledge, like we talked about earlier, we go to the wayside.
Is there a sunset provision on section 2207?
No, so the program actually ended January 17th of 2024. All monies were paid out for that program. So that was it. It was $2.2 billion after they paid everybody else. It was $1.9 billion that they issued out to about 43,000 people.
How many Black people?
Well, again, I can't get those demographics. One of the things about USDA is the transparency issue. They offer all these programs out, but the only thing they advertise, and I could be wrong, and USDA members, if I'm wrong, I've been trying to find information on specifics on how to, how many Black people, how many white people, where's that information at? But if you go through the USDA, one of the things is when they're doing statistics, you got to have be a PhD or a scientist to understand how they broke it down. And two, it costs money for you to buy that information. So how we get it? So now I'm knocking door to door right now. Hey, did you participate in this program? And if so, can you share it with me? Which is not the right way to do it.
That's not. So we need to, we agitators. Everybody that's listening to this, Sister Girl said a number that just blew me away. You said B with a Boston boy, $1 billion, $1.2 billion.
It was $2.2 billion from the Biden-Harris administration after they paid out the third-party groups that were running processing the applications, reviewing it was $1.9 billion to distribute. About 58,000 people applied to the program. 43,000 got awarded. That was people that already owned land or that were planning to own land. If they can show some racial discrimination, racial, gender, sex discrimination within that program, and through their application prior to 2021, they were awarded certain monies based upon if they own land or were planning to own land.
So we don't know the demographics. That's the biggest problem for me. And so part of your study,
as far as what's out there online right now, they'll show award. If you go to the DFAT site, it'll show the awardees by state. It does not break down those actual numbers yet. I don't know if they plan on doing that. That would be nice to know, so that way we kind of have an idea. But since we don't have that idea yet.
So here's the thing. You said it's based upon racial,
gender, sex, if you felt like you got discriminated upon in the USDA, if you could prove by filling out a 40-page application, if you felt like you could prove that, then you submitted that application, it was reviewed, and you were awarded or denied funds.
I would be really interested to know how those numbers broke down, because as we all know, like when it comes to affirmative action, Black people have not been the biggest recipients of affirmative action. And this is a method of affirmative action because the government is correcting something that they did. And so I would be very interested to know what those numbers are, because
I'm interested.
we have, even though affirmative action was intended to correct racial discrimination against Black folks, the historical and systematic, not allowing us in school, now allowing us on jobs, those sort of things, that was meant to correct that. White women have been the biggest recipients of affirmative action programs. So
and this is stuff you can read, and that is why, yes, and
I'm
that
not
is why
opinion, I'm telling you facts.
and I know this, and that is why my niche is so specific to Black women veterans, is because Black women, we hear from the white women, we hear the perspectives of even Indigenous women, we hear other different minorities, but where's our voice? Where's the Black women? Black women are not in that fold. So that is why I chose that, based upon, again, when I say I chose everything systematically, it's because we forget. We let those slip through the cracks. And that is why it seems that we're underrepresented in agriculture, is because of that gap right there. So I am trying to fill that gap by letting our voice be heard, that it wasn't poor access to land and capital. It wasn't that. It wasn't that. I'm gonna just leave it like that. It wasn't.
I get you. I totally get you. I picked up what you dropped. I got
it all day.
Yeah, I got it. What you thinking, Kat? Because I see your girl. I see you.
I'm getting excited about this topic, and I could talk about this all day. Like I said, I read and I study. And again, we could take it biblical. We can go back to the history. Like I said, we can go back to the motherland, and which I've been there just recently, which they have their own in Zambia. They have their own like army, part of a military defense dedicated to agriculture, to feeding their country. I spoke with Kat briefly, and I said, we have a space force. Why? We don't need to worry about a space force. Why don't we have our own branch of service that focuses on agriculture and feeding us and stop letting others come over? Again, we talked about the Europeans and capitalism, but again, going and being taught to our kids and teaching them the land first, like the indigenous people, like and I call us indigenous, speaking from being from Africa, because we taught people how, we taught our kids from when they were babies, what to touch, what not to touch, what to eat, what not to eat, what medicines when they were sick.
We know that systemic oppression has not stopped. And
we know that.
As long as we continue to stay divided, as long as we continue to be programmed, as long as we continue to stand in line for Xboxes and Nike and spend thousands of dollars, and we spend, you said the government gave us 2 point some odd billion dollars.
1.9 billion after cut.
Okay, but we, the Black community, we spend billions in entertainment. We have $1,000 bags, and yet we have Black-owned businesses at Black Wall Street in Atlanta about to go out of business because we can't go there, because people don't want those things in that business, in that structure. We have been programmed to get white, the closer to white you right. And then we don't like what we say. It's a fight to have our hair look the way we do. We destroy ourselves by saying, ugh, girl, your hair nappy. There's nothing nappy about my hair. None. We have to stop making ourselves look bad, and we have to own up to it. We can't wait for our oppressor to free us. Now, I'm not saying everybody's evil, so don't write the show. Don't try to hate. What I'm saying is there is a system that has been in place to oppress Black people. And we have to stop co-signing and drinking the Kool-Aid.
Can I add to that too?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And we have to stop tearing down each other.
Exactly. And that's why we have this show. We love each other. I'm sorry. Let me be quiet.
No, because I get passionate just like you, Kat. And the biggest thing, the challenge I found with doing my research is when I reached out to a lot of Black organizations, farmer organizations, not receiving that love and support and saying, hey, I feel you. I feel you. I see where you're going. Even though we're working on this, there's a seat at the table. Remember I talked to you about that community ideology?
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore. We have that. I'm not going to give you any information. I'm not going to make it easier for you. Why? We all have a place. Help each other out. Stop tearing each other down.
We have to reprogram our brains. We are directly impacted generationally by all this hate. We got another show, one of Karen's favorite shows. What's the brother name? He was talking.
Kevin Washington.
Right. Even your old college friend that was inviting us over to Africa with the books. You know, it's about waking up and say you need to get woke. Woke is okay here. Woke is alive. You need to open up your eyes and your ears and say, how is the way that I'm living serving me and my people? You have to actually ask yourself that, because it's the crowd mentality, and it's way too much when one person, like what we do on this podcast, we connect with other podcasters. We want other people to succeed, because when we all succeed, when one of us succeed, we all succeed. And so we need to reach one and teach one. There is no competition. It's just people who don't love us for the color of our skin or the gender or whatever. No, we don't have time for that. But we have to step up and say, educate your own kids, respect and value your elders because they have our history, take care of the motherland, and make sure you putting back in what you taking out, and keep your dollars in the Black communities. You have farmers like Donna. She sell eggs, but everybody running to the store talking about eggs, $10. Did you try Donna's eggs at the Black farmer that's right here in Loganville, Georgia? No. Did you buy the soaps from Remy Soaps? You know, we can do all of this stuff ourselves. I'm looking at buying paint from the first Black woman who owned her own paint.
Okay, that's another conversation because I need that.
With education, I would, again, I'm a caveat on education. Yes. Stop listening to his story. We have our story.
That's right.
You know, we've only been taught how we break that mind. Again, when I started trying my research topic, they were saying the literature guided us to believe that it was poor access to land and capital. You have to look past certain things and ask why. Find out the why. We always hear, what's your why? Why did this happen? Stop taking things face value when we educate. Education, it doesn't just come from that history book.
Yes.
That's right.
Use different sources of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's out
Credible.
there. We have this little chip, but they say that's going to destroy us. This little cell phone. Get off of TikTok. All these other things. Go back to reading. They got online books. Read those things.
Read those.
If
Yeah,
you
read
have a
them.
question, start asking those questions.
And go
That
to
is
your family. Go to your
go to
ancestors. You got 70,
once they're
80 year
gone.
old people that can tell you all of that. Come on, yo.
I,
It's people
and I
out
know
here.
because I'm the chairperson for my family reunion, so I'm big on that ancestry.
Yeah.
And
Really?
I breathe life into my family and tell them, look, people are dying. We are dying. Once our legacies are gone, and once these people are gone, we can't get those stories.
That's
You
right.
know, like I said, once they're gone, 70, 80 years, 90 years for some people being blessed, that's it. Ask them those questions now. I know a lot of people don't want to do it because of these dark secrets. You talk about these generational curses. We can't
Mm-hmm.
break it and become a better people until we start talking, having the dialogue, and getting past some of those challenges that we have as a people, to break those barriers. Because as long as we keep that inside of us, we're going to be like those crabs in a barrel and keep bringing each other down and getting educated in the right way. Again, education comes
Amen.
from taking these kids outside, saying, get your tail off the computers, get off the
Uh-huh.
games, take them
Mm-hmm.
out to the field, and let them see how this thing is done. And show them the after effects. When I saw my first fruit, my first cucumbers grow, because I knew nothing about farming, I felt that sense of pride that I did this.
Mm-hmm.
I did this. And it was
Mm-hmm.
good. The food is actually better if you because I do
I know,
organic.
right?
Yeah. So
Look.
and it felt good to me in my body. That sense of pride, nobody can take that. And that's what we got to give back to the youth.
So
Yeah.
that leads me to my final and last question.
All right. Sorry
So
talking you to
look,
death.
no, because we this is what we do on Conversations with Mary
Conversation.
Cat. We get
Yeah.
real, and we want people to get inspired to take action to make the world better in whatever way you feel like it needs to be. And hopefully from this episode, people will chime in and learn about the land and reach out to you. And if they're a veteran female, then they'll reach out to you to be a part of the program. But I will say this one little story. In Mississippi, I went to go see my family, in-laws, all that stuff, and they got this big farm and all of the kids and everything out to pick the peas. And you gotta pull them off without breaking open
The whole
and
the
I was
whole hall.
Girl, I was tearing the peas up. They told me, you go in the kitchen. You go find something to do in the house. So when it's time to get out in the grass, I need to learn how to do that so I love to plant and be in the dirt and stuff. So I do want to learn how to do that. But if I can't, I'm good with cleaning up and, mincing and dicing and all that stuff. So everybody got to play a role. Even if you don't think you can be in the ground, in the earth, with the earth, you still can plant flowers, edible flowers. There's a bunch of things that you can do. It's not just tomatoes and so forth. So there's many things that you can do. But when you spoke about those generational curses and everything that's pinned up, that's mental wellness. What do you do with understanding all of the disparities that's going on in life, with your studies, with trying to fight this good fight, like getting in good trouble? What do you do to manage your wellness and your mental health?
Balance. A balance. And when I say balance, I tell you that pride of going out into that land and listening. I ground sometimes when I go outside. If anybody doesn't know what grounding is, we're electrical beings. You got to take your shoes off, the synthetics,
Yeah.
and put your feet in the ground. You got to feel that soil. Remember that soil is living.
Mm-hmm.
So I just go outside and I take some time for myself and just breathe and just let it go. Just breathe and let it go. And also, like I said, it's just reading and going out there and learning more about how can I be better, and not only for myself, but for my community. As far as being, I have a mother of two daughters. How can I be better for them? What are they looking at? Because my daughters are the only two Black women looking at me. It's a whole
Mm.
bunch of Black women looking at me, and you always got to keep that on your shoulders. Women have a viable, not viable, but valuable role because somebody's always watching us, whether we
Yes.
believe so or not. And
Mm.
and if we're not put together, that's why women, the beauty thing is so beat up on us.
We
Is
dress for other women.
yes, we dress for other women because
Yes.
if we're not put together, people feel like we got our whole lives apart. Our lives are in shambles when it's not. I
Right.
can tell you, I look like this every day, and I can change it up if I want
Yeah.
to. I just this is what I choose to be because I'm not living for anybody else.
That's
You
right.
got to take that time up for yourself and find out who you really are. Get in a space. When you talk about mental health, you got to get in a space that supports you. You got to find the right people who share your same ideals. You got to get around people that support you, really support you and your ideals. And again, like this podcast, we got people talking from I don't know you, you don't know me, but we can all connect because we share some of the same ideologies that
Yeah.
we understand, and know that the power of women, we understand the power of Black women, we understand why our purpose, our why on earth, from being from Mother Earth, and why we have to, protect it and be stewards, good stewards of the earth, because after this, it's no more. So again, I balance it with my environment, I balance it with my food, eating the right foods, and I balance it with my, again, spirituality, taking the time for myself and opening my mind to other things and being open and receptive to those things.
Thank
I
you for
know
that,
that's right.
sister. Thank you. I I just want to say that to our listeners, um, we talked a lot about like African spirituality and being one with the earth and acknowledging the Mother Earth, that feminine energy. There's an African proverb that says, because we talked about the institutional knowledge, that says that when an old man dies, a library burns. So,
Mm.
which means that if we have not talked to our elders, if we have not sat and had the conversations with them about the old ways, how they did things, then we
Mm-hmm.
lose that institutional knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to your folks. Talk to your folks. Find your tribe. Find the people who are like minded, who
Mm-hmm.
support you in your passions. So find other people who are also connected to the earth, who want to be a part of this movement of curing, because we have to cure her. We have to cure this land.
She
And
hurting. She
yes,
hurting.
and I really
That's
believe that as
right.
Africans, that we are the stewards of this earth. I really, really believe that. So, Sister Kelsha, thank you.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you for coming on. And to our listeners, as always, we thank you for joining us on this episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat.
Well, we are impacting the world one conversation at a time.